And we're back in the car on a hopefully happy hump day, like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of this Wednesday afternoon, a very hot and steamy and uncomfortable afternoon here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. So in the immortal words of Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman, I have seen. I don't see new movies or even new-ish movies that often, but I have seen Ryan Coogler's latest collaboration with Michael B. Jordan and Michael B. Jordan. I have seen Sinners, and a little PSA for those who don't know, Sinners is streaming free, and I have to put it in quotes because it is a pay service, but if you get what was HBO Max and then was Max and is now once again HBO Max, if you get that channel, Sinners is streaming as we speak. So the film sits at 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is a very high score. I don't need to tell you that that's a higher score than, 85 to 90% of Oscar winners for Best Picture. That is a bonkers level score, especially for a movie which has elements of a lot of different genres. It has elements of a lot of different genres. There are elements of a gangster film. There are elements of a crime movie. There are elements of the sort of Prohibition era period piece. There are elements of the forbidden romance story. We can't be together because society says we can't be together, and I'm not making jokes. That's real. It has elements of a lot of different movies. There are a lot of films that are on display here while watching the movie. I counted the Coen brothers' Oh Brother, Where Art Thou appeared to be a very significant influence, with the emphasis on music and people you wouldn't necessarily expect to be great musicians somehow are not just great musicians, they're next level musicians. So I saw little Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, but the film that this most directly resembles in terms of the plot construction, where the movie first 45 minutes is one movie and then it becomes something else. 29 years ago, in January of 1996, on its opening day, I saw the movie that Sinners most directly draws inspiration from. A film that starts as, in that case, a crime thriller, and then it turns into a balls out, almost literally, vampire movie. The Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez collaboration, From Dusk Till Dawn. Now, when I started reading reviews and people talking online about Sinners, I didn't see anything about From Dusk Till Dawn. All I saw were astonishing rave reviews and many observers saying words to the effect of, I don't even understand where they could have come up with an idea like this in the first place. Well, I just gave you a couple of concepts and a couple of ideas as to where they got it from, but still, whoever had the idea for this in the first place, I don't think that I would want to meet them in a dark alley, because they are very bent, very twisted. Now, Quentin Tarantino, you could say creatively, is very sick and very twisted, but he is somebody, well, maybe not a dark alley, but I would like to shake hands with and say, you're a genius. Now, I am still trying to make sense, not of this film. It's very easy to follow. This is not it might be a little bit of a mind fuck because of the tonal shifts, but this is a straightforward story with a lot of symbolic elements. There's a lot of Shakespearean level shit, and there's also, because it's mostly set in the early 1930s during Prohibition. Well, I don't think the word prohibition is brought up. I'm pretty sure I didn't hear that word in this movie. And the word speakeasy is not brought up, but there's a lot of elements of that, and it has nothing to do with the Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, Red Fox collaboration, Harlem Nights. But the idea of a young African-American male going into business in an area where maybe they don't want you to do this here. Now, that film, it was played for laughs and comedic effect, and the Danny Aiello character kind of is played, he is played for a fool by Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, and to some extent, Red Fox. Well, in the world of this movie, you have these two brothers, Stack and Smoke. Great names. One's name is Elijah. I forgot the other one, what his name was. And they're both played by Michael B. Jordan. And they were gangsters in Chicago of some kind. And it seems that they were either run out of Chicago and the Capone mob, or they left of their own accord, presumably after doing some very, very bad stuff. And maybe they stole a lot of money. Maybe they didn't. We don't know. We can just take guesses. Are they the sinners of the title? Are the sinners of the title, the spoiler alert, vampires that we don't meet for like half the movie? Or is the film saying, we are all sinners? Again, there's a lot of jokes that can be made. If you have Al Pacino from Devil's Advocate in this movie screaming and yelling, I'd like to see a supercut of him yelling about God being an absentee landlord. And I have so many names. Are you the devil? Oh, I have so many names. You're the Antichrist. Whatever. Great stuff. But my problem with this movie is that it has a very... At the end of the film, I said this is one of the most nihilistic movies I had ever seen, where it seemed to exist just to pound into us that it was all meaningless. And I know that's not what they were going for, but this is a film that I would give an extremely high rating. If you ask me on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rank this movie? The skill of the performances, the craftsmanship, the sharpness of the writing, the awareness of cultural norms in that era, and the fact that sometimes people who may seem like a heel, they really are looking out for the best interests of someone they love. That if there is a forbidden love and one person decides we can't go forward, it doesn't always come from a bad place. This movie actually makes us believe it came from a place of love. He understands this won't work. This can't exist under, living where we are living right now. But this film left me feeling really bad, in a very negative space. And I've seen many people who I respect, in the social media world, as far as not just film critics, but people who talk about movies and who love movies and champion great movies. This is a great movie that I really hate. I could give this film a 9 out of 10, while at the same time telling you I did not like this film. And the closest antecedent in my own life is that I agree. Now, I'm a big Martin Scorsese fan. I am a Scorsese scholar. He is one of those people that I studied to a greater extent than other famous, legendary filmmakers. Like, I know more about Scorsese than, for example, that I know about Coppola or George Lucas. Just throw that out there. If I am asked, what do you think of Raging Bull? It's a 10 out of 10. It is a fucking masterpiece. Do I like the film? No, I hate the film. I can't watch that movie. I find it to be painful to sit through. And I feel the same about Goodfellas. Goodfellas, a 10 out of 10. If somebody tells me I think you're a fucking idiot, Goodfellas is the best film of the entire decade of the 90s, bro, which you say, in this case that would be me, is the best movie decade in the history of Hollywood, the 90s. I agree. I mean, I don't say that I agree, but I have no problem with somebody that puts Goodfellas on the exalted level of, I think it's the best film of the decade, but I do not like that movie. And Sinners is a film that I give an extremely high rating for, and I would tell anyone to see it, but I do not like this film. This film left me feeling wrung out and unhappy. And I've read people talking about how they saw it 3 or 4 times in theaters. I can't imagine ever watching another frame from this film ever again. And I had a similar reaction to Joker, the one with Joaquin from 2019. I was blown away by Joker. I thought the film was brilliant. I would have given that probably an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10. But I have no desire to ever revisit even 1 second of that movie. And I had zero desire to see the sequel. No thank you, I'm all set here. Sinners left me feeling bad, wrung out. No thank you, I'm all set here. I want nothing to do with that movie ever again. And I had an even more visceral reaction to it than I have in the past to Raging Bull and Goodfellas. And stepping outside of myself for a minute, I know I mention this guy a lot. But my favorite film critic, Pulitzer Prize winner, who unfortunately has been gone, and I can't believe he's been gone a dozen years, and his old buddy and partner, Gene Siskel's been gone more than 26 years, Roger Ebert. One of my favorite Roger Ebert reviews, I was thinking about this last night after the movie, and I was trying to come to terms with what I had seen, what the movie had kind of done to me, and how the movie made me feel. Roger Ebert, a movie that's about to celebrate its 39th anniversary in a couple of days, James Cameron's Aliens. Roger Ebert believed that that movie was a masterpiece. He believed that Aliens, the craftsmanship, the technical prowess, the wizardry that James Cameron showed, the performances, the effects work, the action sequences, the editing, the way that James Horner's musical score becomes a character. Ebert loved all of that. But he said that movie, the last at least 90 minutes, was so unrelentingly grim and intense that the movie just put him into a blender, and he didn't like it. There are other movies that he wrote about that put him into a blender that he did. For example, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, another one of my favorites, where he said, in that instance, that was a few years before, that was 2 hours of a nonstop roller coaster, where you got on and you didn't get off for 2 hours. But that film exhilarated him. Aliens just made him feel bad. But he said at the end of his review, I am giving this film high marks for the incredible level of professionalism across the board. The implication being, he wouldn't be doing his job as a film critic if he just said, this movie made me feel bad, thumbs down. Or, this movie made me feel bad, therefore I'm going to ignore the across-the-board skill in every category of this movie. So, that's where I am with Sinners. I would give this a 9 out of 10, but I am just wrung out, and the film disappointed me. I wanted something other than what happened to happen, and that's, again, I've talked about this, when you bring certain expectations in. And I also felt, I'm not going to go into any spoilers, the character of Stack, that's one of the twin brothers that Michael B. Jordan plays. There is a component of his character, something that happens in the final third that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't work based on what we know. And that's a little bit of a weakness of the film. But we're talking about, this is still a 9 out of 10. But there's inconsistencies with that character that I just didn't buy. I said, well, this is bullshit. But the story grabs you from the beginning, takes a bit of a risk. You have a flashback, like a prologue, epilogue kind of a setup, and that can often backfire. But this one, I was hooked all the way. I was not bored. I never was looking at my watch or wondering, wow, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. It feels like I've been here forever. No, the movie, it goes at, I wouldn't even call it a leisurely pace, but it's methodical. It takes its time setting up, a cliche though this may be, setting up the characters, setting up the situations. The character of Smoke has his own tragedy, and Stack has his, hurts and things that he's carried forward. And the Haley Steinfeld character appears to be antagonistic, and she is, but not in the way we expect. It's just, the film was really well cast. And when I mentioned how sometimes you watch a movie and you say, how could anybody have even come up with an idea for this, even with the antecedents that I mentioned? Another movie that has that quality is one that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, John Sayles' Lone Star, which is not a horror film. It's a movie that's also almost 3 decades old. It's about basically a murder mystery, a 3-decade unsolved murder mystery in a border town in Texas. And Chris Cooper's sheriff trying to figure out what hand his father, played in the film by Matthew McConaughey, had to do with that death. And that's one where Siskel and Ebert said, this story is so crazy, I don't even understand how John Sayles, how could he possibly have even come up with this in the first place? What we see in Sinners is very deep and very intense, almost world building is the attempt here. But it just left me really cold. And I'm still, as you can tell, I'm still frustrated by this film today. And when I mentioned Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, there are moments in that film where George Clooney's character is a musician, and we see other characters who inexplicably have this incredible musical ability. And there was a sequence in Sinners, a really beautiful sequence, where at least two of them are Irish, but where these Irish people who would like to join the party in the new kind of nightclub, juke joint, if you will, that the two brothers have put together. And that's like the whole setup of the movie, is them trying to get everything together for the opening night of this juke joint. And they would like to come in and take part. And we know stuff about them. Yeah, you know what? Tell them to turn around and get the fuck out of town. Don't ever come back. But they start singing in a kind of ethereal way, which is similar to what we get in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And there is that Coen Brothers feel, the kind of the texture of the image, the way the cinematographer shot it. There are shots that feel very Joel and Ethan Coen, and that's high praise. That is not in any way a criticism or taking shots at them. The depth of the image, the things that are going on, in the outer edges of the image, all of that. There is so much high quality professionalism in this film. With my educational background and what I did when I was in film school, ultimately, I sometimes just want to be told a really good story in a lean and efficient fashion. And so I can sit here and I'm going to say it. Sinners is a much better movie than From Dusk Till Dawn. From Dusk Till Dawn to me is a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. Sinners is a 9 out of 10. But I've seen From Dusk Till Dawn at least 15 times start to finish, and I could watch it again right now. And even though that movie has nihilist, anarchic elements, that film to me is compulsively rewatchable. Because sometimes you just want good guys and bad guys. And you want the good guys to win. Now, the irony with From Dusk Till Dawn, there really aren't any good guys in that movie, with the exception of Juliette Lewis's character. She's fine. Like, she doesn't do anything wrong. The character that George Clooney plays in From Dusk Till Dawn is probably as bad or worse than the twins in Sinners as the movie opens. He is basically a notorious thief. We are led to believe he's killed a couple of, regular humans, not vampires. And he's a pretty lousy guy. His name is Seth Gecko, great name. And Tarantino plays Richard Gecko. Tarantino's character is an unrepentant, unregenerate piece of shit. He is horrible. Like, he's not just a guy with an itchy trigger finger. He is a sexual predator. He is horrendous. But there's something about the way that movie unfolds, that as much as Seth Gecko does audience alienating things, we feel like he has something underneath, that maybe he's not really this bad. Maybe on a different day he would be better. And that movie plays off of the similar idea to what Sinners does, which is, if you're coming up against vampires who are, let's just say, not God's creatures anymore, all bets are off, and you root for whoever you root for. And From Dusk Till Dawn has moments of what I would consider to be extreme, audience appreciation and rah, let's fucking go. Those kinds of moments. And sometimes you just need that. Sinners doesn't really give us much. I think there was supposed to be a couple of moments of catharsis. That didn't work. I didn't feel that at all. I just kept feeling worse and worse as the movie was going on, and I'm like, oh my God, this is all going to end bad. And then again, there are movies where everything goes to shit, and I'll say, oh my God, I love that movie. It's like, you can't explain why a movie works or doesn't work for you. It just hits you a certain way. And I don't know, maybe if I force myself to watch Sinners 5 years from now, it'll land the way that it's supposed to. I mean, I do have the history, 2 films from 1991. The first time I saw it, I thought they sucked. The Fisher King, which I now consider to be one of the better films of the decade, and especially Lawrence Kasdan's Grand Canyon, which I was bitterly disappointed. I thought, well, the story just goes nowhere. Nothing happens. It's a bunch of random events taking place in Los Angeles over a couple of weeks. Big deal. Or a couple of months, actually. Then I watched the film a few years later and said, no, this is maybe the best film of 1991. How did it not get a Best Picture nomination? And I could say the same about The Fisher King. But I don't know. This doesn't feel like a film that would normally get 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I know there were some people who were objecting to some of the racial, I don't really know what the objection would be. Like, I didn't have an issue with the film from that perspective. I mean, you look at what, again, not to be overly political here, but in the not that much longer before the movie Sinners is set, you had world heavyweight champion Jack Johnson, who was routinely getting arrested simply for transporting a white woman across state lines. So he wasn't transporting her, he was taking her. She's his girlfriend, and they're on a train traveling to another state, and the guy gets arrested. So you can answer the question for yourself. If you have a movie which shows something like that, is that race baiting, or is that just telling you this is how it was? This is how it was for a lot of people, and especially in a state like Mississippi, where you know that there is still a KKK in 1932, and maybe there are people out here who are not actually vampires, but mean to do you harm simply because they don't want you in their town. All of that stuff, I got it. You know, I was with the story, and I understood there is a lot of symbolism, and almost everything in this movie, there are very few sort of stray or random conversations, and there's more sex in this film than I expected. And for what it's worth, not to make any Josh Allen jokes, but Haley Steinfeld and Michael B. Jordan had really good chemistry. Like, I bought their relationship, and the thing is, social media, because of the nature of quick information, 30 seconds here, 30 seconds there. There was a reel, I think it started on TikTok, of this I'm not sure, but there was a reel featuring their characters, seen pretty early in the film. And I don't know if it was put together just to give people the wrong idea about the movie, but this sequence, if you actually see the movie after having seen that reel, you'll say, well, that reel is bullshit. Exactly. That reel is bullshit because it gives you an idea that is not true about the characters in this film. And I don't really understand why they would do that, because when I saw it in the context of the movie, I said, well, that doesn't hit anything like what I expected it to, based on people making jokes about, yeah, Haley really nailed that guy or whatever. In the world of the reel, he seems like a real piece of crap, and she seems like, a real tough girl. Yeah, you're gonna talk shit about me, I'm gonna bring it right back. But that's really not what it was. It was just too much of a downer, too much bad, and I didn't. There are people who would see the ending as a kind of a happy ending, if you will. It's not a conventional happy ending. I guess it also depends on who you see as the main character. And what is this story really about? As I always bring up Dirty Harry. Is Dirty Harry a movie about one honest cop trying to stop a serial killer? Or is this story, Dirty Harry, about an overreaching maverick cop and the system that needs to keep him in line? I don't know. But if you see a certain character in this film as the main character, well, maybe the movie will hit you differently. I'm almost apologetic that this movie didn't work for me the way that it was supposed to. But I remind you, this is a 9 out of 10. This is a must-see movie that, the audience score is not as high as the Rotten Tomatoes score. And when I mention how a film that, in my opinion, this film echoed other films that, Ryan Coogler, maybe he was a big fan of From Dusk Till Dawn, and every young filmmaker of the last 10, 15, 20 years, they're all going to be fans of the Coen brothers. Like, you're in the business. You're not going to say, oh, I don't really know their work. I guarantee you that Ryan Coogler knows their work. So, for example, 8 years ago, the movie Get Out, which is a movie that was Jordan Peele, there were more films that echoed. That had way more of, okay, it has elements of Manchurian Candidate, it has elements of Stepford Wives, Marathon Man, Seconds, all of these kind of classic 60s and 70s thrillers, but put into, at the time, a 2017 package. Now, that was a movie that even now, 97, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. That film had elements which were deemed problematic in certain quarters, but I've seen that film 3 times, and that is a movie that has moments that are really upsetting and depressing. But somehow I left that film uplifted and thinking that I had seen a masterpiece. Sinners might be close to a masterpiece. It's just strange to say a movie's a 9 out of 10, but I'm going to give it a thumbs down. How could I do that? I can't. but I recommend everybody see it who hasn't. This is definitely a film that you're going to want to talk about after seeing, a little confessional like I did. This is certainly more of a confessional than a normal episode where I discuss a movie and try to break it down. Because obviously I didn't go into any of the production history or how Ryan Coogler got the financing or did Michael B. Jordan put in some dough. I don't know. The, Proximity Media, that's actually Ryan Coogler's company. So my assumption is that he had the project set up at Warner's and the WB put forth the money. I know that it was just an incredible box office success. It might even still be playing in a couple of theaters, but relative to costs, film probably grossed, 15 times production cost, some crazy amount. And as I said, the audience score is high. So me saying I don't like the movie, quote unquote, don't let it deter you. Because there have been plenty of films and plenty of takes that I've had that obviously are wrong. I can admit that. And it is a film that is worth seeing, and it's probably going to be up. It wouldn't surprise me if it snags a Best Picture nomination. And Coogler will definitely be up for Best Director. I mean, right now you could argue that it's the front runner. Is ridiculous. I mean, we're in July here, and how many more months? You got 5.5 months before the end of the year. But Sinners, streaming on HBO Max. If you have it, you don't have to pay any, extra, because it gets kind of stupid. If you go on Amazon Prime, you got to pay $15 to rent it. And maybe you could, if you don't have HBO Max, you could get like a free trial or something. You just, go in there, watch the movie, and then dump the free trial, and you got to see the movie for free. Anytime you can kind of sort of give it back, so to speak, put one over on the man, as they say, go right ahead. You don't need to pay any. Don't pay $15 on Amazon Prime or whatever it is. There's no reason to do that if you can see the movie without paying anything extra. But yeah, Sinners, a brilliant film, which I just don't like, and I'm still really upset about the fact that I didn't like it, because I should have, and it left me feeling really, really cold. Yeah, I guess that's it. I don't really have a conventional wrap up to the episode. Just wanted to let you know my thoughts on this film and reiterate, see it at all costs. And, you want to report back and say, bro, I've seen it 3 times. I don't know where the hell you came up with this take from. All good. I try to entertain the little Al Pacino impersonation. But yeah, Sinners, somehow a 9 out of 10 and a movie that I really don't like. So this has been episode 581 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all so much for spending some of your really brutally hot and miserable, as Mississippi in the world of this film is pretty fucking brutal and hot. But if you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, peace.